What's one word that can totally change your day? Rum. All right. So rum history number 2. It's been a while since the first one, so let me recap like real quick. On the first rum history video, I started from the sugarcane plant, how it was originally from Papua New Guinea, and then it traveled all around the world, and finally Christopher Columbus, when he wanted to go to India, he wanted to plant sugarcane. So like him discovering the whole new world back then was an accident on Columbus, but he was originally intended to bring sugarcane and then make sugar and then make alcohol from it. So it was originally like a planned deal. Now, he discovered, so the new world is discovered by European people. It's time to conquer. So this really famous book from the 1997. It's also a TV show, Guns, Germs, and Steel. Kind of explains. It's a history book that explains how like civilizations started from like Egypt or like north part of like Mesopotamia, and then Europe eventually could conquer all over the world. So that happened. Basically, like the famous story is Cortez, a Spanish conquistador. He came to Mexico with just 5,000 people. He landed, and then this Tenochtitlan, today's Mexico City. Basically, he conquered the entire Aztec kingdom without 5,000 people. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it was like that kind of stuff. The big thing was, but like, so they came to conquer, and they came to plant sugar canes to make sugar and then make money, right? Or business. But there was one issue, was that originally they were gonna come and then take over the land, conquer, and then whoever that were living there, like the indigenous people, they were gonna enslave them, they catch them and then use them to forced labor to do the plantation and that kind of stuff. That plan didn't work out because the germs. So they went in with their guns and, hey, listen to me. But then the germs that they brought with them, especially like smallpox, which thankfully it's smallpox is one of the biggest disease that probably killed humans the most. Yeah, scary. It doesn't exist anymore, I heard. And then or flus or other stuff, right? The people in the New World, they didn't have resistance to it like Europeans did. So they got this, that 90% of people just died from it. So they were gonna use their people to do the plantation stuff, but they died. So they were no more. And then white people, they were lazy, they don't want to work themselves. So they had to bring from somewhere else, which is Africa, which I spoke about it on my last video a little bit. But it's like based on business, so bring slaves to work in the plantation here, and then export back sugar, rum, and other stuff. And then the business continues. And they'll get guns to conquer even more. And yeah, so that's like the brief of that. I kind of very roughly split it through the centuries. The 16th century, all this conquistador thing happened. So this was pretty much all Spain. It was the era where Spain was called the kingdom, empire that the sun never sets, right? But they have lands and all over the world. So whoever they own always there's like sunny daytime kind of stuff. Anyways, they were the ones that originally kind of took over most of Mesoamerica. And then end of 16th century, the Battle of Armada happens. So basically the power kind of shifts to Britain and Holland, Dutch, Netherlands, so many ways to say. Anyways, power in Europe switched to Britain and Netherlands, but Spain, they still had all these. So in the Americas, Spain had so much power still, and they're the major ones. So if you look at like all these countries that I have, like E is España, it used to be Spain, and yeah, all these, that kind of stuff. So it was still Spain era. 17th century is still Spain era mostly. I said pirates because that's like the kind of the concentrated Pirates of the Caribbean type of kind of era, although it wasn't as dramatic. In fact, like pirates and rums are really associated, but pirates preferred brandy over rum because rum didn't really taste good back then. It was like more like a cheap alcohol. Like brandy or cognac, it tasted much better, so they preferred brandy over rum, but it was like rum was a second choice. That was made here. 18th century, it becomes more and more Britain. Like by then, Britain had United States. I mean, pre-United, like the 13th colony and stuff, which probably I'm gonna talk more about that on the rum video number 3. I'm gonna talk about United States because back then, in this era, the major alcohol of the United States was also rum because they grew there also, like around here. And then in the 18th century, United States claimed independence from Britain, and then all the independence kind of stuff happens. The first one was USA. The second one was Haiti, if I'm talking about like this countries. And then most of Mesoamerica started becoming independent, mostly from Spain. And like all these countries, including like Mexico independence from France, but that's like kind of complicated story. But anyways, all these countries claimed independence, started to, and then this area, the islands, they didn't really claim independent. They couldn't get there until the 20th century, like pretty much after World War II. Some of the Cuba or Haiti was the very first one, but these like a lot smaller islands, they didn't really claim. Some of them they became independent like 1980s and stuff like that, and some of them are still owned by France or Netherlands or Britain. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So a lot of different countries, but predominantly Spain, Britain, a little bit of France, a little bit of Dutch. Dutch is not even on here, but took power in this area, and then slowly gave up or they became independent. That kind of stuff. So, but they've been making rums like the whole time since this time in each area. So there are differences in terms of flavor or in terms of production method or stuff like that, depending on the countries. So in the later part, I'm gonna talk about, I picked 10 countries, so I'm gonna talk about that. Before I get there, briefly, let me show you the label difference. So some of them, not 100%, not legit, but most of them, you can kind of tell by how they call rum who the powered country was. So if it says Ron, R-O-N, like this one, Ron de Panama, that means it used to be a colony of España, Spain. It used to be a Spanish colony. If it says rum, R-U-M, then it was a previously like a traditional Jamaica rum, R-U-M. Then it used to be a British colony. And then there are other names, like Mexico, they call it charanda, that kind of stuff. But I picked another one called rum. French colony, they call it R-H-U-M, rum. Like this one, like rum. So just from the label, you can kind of tell, if it's R-H-U-M, then there was a French rum, a French influence rum. If it's wrong, then Spanish. You can kind of guess, which is kind of fun. All right, label stuff. All right, so I'm gonna go down the list and explain. I'll make it pretty quick. I'll try. I usually talk forever. So I'm gonna kind of go down like this and then like this. Okay. Start with Nicaragua. Nicaragua, it's more famous for coffee and things. It's not a super famous country for rum, but they do have one big brand called Flor de Caña, and that's one brand that's really popular in the United States. And a lot of bartenders, they use it for their well spirit, like a cocktail base spirit. So that's why I picked it up. It's a very cleaner style rum. Next, I mean Panama. Panama also Spanish. I have one here, Panama Pacific. I think the most famous brand is called Ron Abuelo, but that one is more a sipping rum. It's like vanilla, more aged type thing. Panama Pacific, the one I have right now, is very clean. It's like super dry. It's almost like, in a good way, it's almost like vodka-like, except it has like a natural sugarcane sweetness to it. So I love this brand. I use it for a lot of my base spirit for rum. Next, skipping Colombia, going to Venezuela. Alright, I don't have a... Venezuela, I actually really like their rums. Their most popular one is probably Diplomatico. And I've done events, but they're a great brand. And my favorite is Reserva from Diplomatico. It sips like whiskey and has like a really nice vanilla caramel kind of touch to it, and thick and rich, so good. Another brand is probably Pampero. Pampero comes in like a cute round bottle and has like its own bag and things. Really good for a price. It's also a sipping style rum. That's the aged and kind of brown color. So good stuff, sipping stuff. Next, Guyana. Guyana was a British colony. And one big thing about Guyana is they have this river called the Demerara River. Demerara. Demerara. So it's a river, and along the river, the soil is perfect for growing sugar canes. So it's like a really famous region for sugar cane. So the sugar that comes from Demerara region is like higher quality than other sugars. So the rum made from that Demerara sugar is considered very high quality. One of the major brands is called El Dorado. El Dorado. Oh, this one is interesting. It says rum, R-U-M, Rums, right? R-O-N-R-H-U-M. So it has all three all three of these rum on the same label. It's kind of interesting, right? I like El Dorado because it can be both like a cocktail price point, so not as expensive, but good aged rum. So this one has like a nice caramel flavor to it, or caramel vanilla flavor to it. That's good in certain cocktails. And the cool thing about them is they also do interesting things. Like I think they have 3 different stills, and they'll make rum. Like they usually blend them, right? This is over a blend, but they will like pick a rum just made from this one still and then age it on its own, and then experiment, maybe finish it in a different cask, bourbon finish or sherry finish or whatever finished, and then sell them. So they do like more experimental or one-off type projects. One time, like a couple years, 3 or 4 years ago, my guy brought me like El Dorado 12 years, but like 10 different. Well, I got so drunk that day. That was a happy day at work. Yeah, so cool stuff. Guyana is also famous for lemon heart, H-A-R-T, like Joe Hart, the goalie. Hart. They make a 151 rum that's actually tastes good. Still is one. Right, it's Guyana. Next, we're going to Cuba. Cuba, of course, is famous for Havana Club, and of course, I don't have Havana Club with me because of the tariff. We cannot import in the United States. You gotta go to like an airport, or you gotta go somewhere, airport, and then buy it and bring it back. But besides the United States, it is probably the top 3. Let me say top 3 brand of rum in the world. It's probably Havana Club, Bacardi, and then third could be I don't know, Myers, or could be something different. Yeah, top 2. So Havana Club stylistically is very clean style. It's good, really good for cocktails. Great for mojito, was invented there. Great for daiquiri, was invented there. You know, Hemingway stuff. Good. Aged ones are good too. They're not like, in my personal opinion, they're not super amazing to the point where like I must do everything I can do to get this. It's not that level, but it's good. Who's next? Oh, next was Puerto Rico. I'm gonna hop because I was gonna talk about Bacardi a little bit. The Puerto Rico originally was Spanish region. Now it belongs to the United States, right? The biggest brand they have is Bacardi. They also have another brand, Don.2. But let me talk something bad about Bacardi on this video because I'm sure not many people are watching it, so I think I can say it. Bacardi, they are super businessmen. Parent company from Spain, then they landed in Cuba, established company in Cuba. They also had a rum factory in Barcelona. They were kind of international corporate back then. Well, their main factory was in Cuba, but Cuba became communist country in the 1960, right? So Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, that time. So Cuba became communist, like they became communist country, and they're like right here, right? And then, yeah, it's like, of course I didn't grow up. My mother did a little bit, but I didn't grow up in the Cuban crisis. The Cuban crisis was like a big deal. Look at this. Anyways, a different story. But going back to Bacardi, Bacardi originally was in Cuba, but when the communists take over they escaped, or they moved all their stuff. They took some recipe from Havana Club, but anyways, they moved their factory to Puerto Rico and then became Puerto Rican company, so that they could still sell to the United States till today. And then another thing that they did, I forgot, I didn't check the exact year, but Bacardi has a trademark called Havana Club in the United States. Bacardi owns a trademark, a name, Havana Club, because Cuban Havana Club cannot sell to the United States anyway because of the tariff. So they went ahead and got the name. So after Obama, the tariffs, most tariffs between Cuba and the United States are removed. So if they really tried, they can sell Havana Club in the United States, except if they wanted to do it, they gotta change their name, and or go into a lawsuit with Bacardi, which they already went to a lawsuit back then and then lost. So that's why United States, we're probably not gonna see Havana Club for a good while, thanks to Bacardi. Bacardi, it's a mass producer. It's good. It's good. Recently, they've been improving their aged rums, like the 8 years. Actually, tastes pretty good. So, yeah, they're making improvements. All right. Next, going back, Jamaica, one of my personal favorite countries for rum. Jamaica. Oh, I forgot to do the Panama when I did the Panama. All right, Jamaica, man. I got 2 Jamaican rums. Jamaica, British colony, and a lot of the major brand is probably Appleton Estate, which is very good, like really smooth drinking. But that doesn't best represent Jamaican rum. Jamaican rum, the good ones are funky, super funky. Like it smells like very ripe banana and that kind of stuff. So one, like Appleton is very good, and it's good for cocktails, and it's good for very smooth. My personal favorite are these 2. It is Smith & Cross Navy strength rum, so it's 57% alcohol. Super strong, intense, super funky. So good. You like when you make cocktails, you can add like a little bit, like tiny bit, half an ounce or something, and it can change the cocktail pretty. It can improve the cocktail, like adding multiple layers. You don't need that much. Probably my favorite of most rums, Hampton. This is they've been making rum, but they never really sold it on their own. It's quite recent that they have like their own packaging, because they'll make rum and then like a brand will buy it and then they'll blend it themselves and then package it. That happens a lot, and it's like beyond. They can buy rum from like here, like other countries, and then bring it over, and then other countries they bring it over and then blend it and package it and sell. They can do that. After they used to just sell it, now they kind of package it on sale. It's so good. It tastes like whiskey. You're drinking like whiskey on the rocks, except it has like a little acidity to it. It's amazing. Bad. All right. What's next? So we're skipping Haiti. I'm gonna talk about Haiti at the end. Talk about this. Barbados. Let's do it real quick. Barbados. I think I explained on the first video that they have the oldest running rum company, which is Mount Gay. It still exists today. It still tastes great. very vanilla type. But they make different stuff. They recently changed their master blender, I think. So supposedly they made improvements and stuff like that. Barbados was the first like early, because it's like right here, coming from. They were the really early islands to start the plantation process, and the country, like the island is so small, they used up the land very quick, and then they do monoculture. Basically, they just plant one thing, so that it just sucks up all the nutrition, and it's really not good for planting. That's why they early stage of rum, they started here and then they move. Okay, they of course they kill most of the people that already lives there and start over. Plant sugar cane, couple years, it's no good anymore. Let's go to the next island. Let's go next. Until they ended up in Jamaica or Cuba, where the soil is so good to where you plant sugar cane. It's good. It's okay. You can keep doing it. So they were the first ones to start a rum process. Still make very good quality rum. I'm gonna go back a little bit to the French country. The French, they don't have a lot of colonies in the Caribbean. They pretty much have these 3 islands, and then they have a smaller one, Curacao Islands, and a little bit here. And then they used to have Haiti, but they lost it like pretty early. They lost it like here. But I picked it up because they make a really interesting style. So rum from French colonies are called rum agricole. So rum agricole blanc. It's a little different process than normal rum. Instead of using leftover sugarcane goo, which is called molasses, they use freshly squeezed sugarcane juice. So they harvest it, they juice it, you get the sugarcane water, and they ferment that. And then they have a stricter law that you gotta do this process within how many hours after harvesting, and you gotta use this. They have like a very, very strict rule how to make these, and it comes out really funky, which I like. But today it's like a whole category on its own. And there's 3 islands. This is from which one? Martinique. Martinique is probably the most famous. So Rum Nizon, or Clement, or Rum JM, or Damozo, or there are several brands that make agricole, and they're really good. I'll probably do a video on this alone, making daiquiris. Pretty simple. Right, at the end, Haiti. I saved this to the very end because it has a little unique history. Haiti became independent like pretty much right after the United States did, so like early 1800s. So they were like, I said, most Caribbean islands didn't become independent till the 20th century. They were independent like before like these guys did. It's like very early stage. It's partially because it was a French colony, and the French Navy sucks. Basically, they can't really. And it was actually, I mean, to be honest, it was the French Revolution, so they couldn't really handle all this outside stuff. They had issue within their country, so they let them go. So Haiti became independent country, a pretty early stage, and they were running themselves. But the bad thing is, the French was kind of ashamed that it's not cool to let go of your colony. The other countries like Spain or Britain, they're gonna laugh at you. Like, hey, you suck. Like, what they did, what French did to Haiti is that they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. They don't deal with it. They just like, I'm not gonna deal with you. Nobody's gonna deal with you. So they simply got left alone from the rest of the world, which is pretty unfortunate. And then in the 20th century, they had a leader that pretty much failed the country. So still, as a country, they are pretty poor. But from rum world, they got some good news. So they got this thing called clarin. So clarin means, it's the name for rum in Haiti. Just like in Mexico, they call it charanda, or in Brazil, they call it cachaça, but like Brazilian, they try to separate cachaça between rum. Anyways, clarin is the rum for Haiti, and it's made extremely, or like a old school method. Like for example, this guy, his factory production room is probably half this room, which is like very small. It's like your bedroom size. And he will go and harvest sugarcane. He'll take it to juice it. He will hand juice it with like a thing. Get it into a tub, bring it home, put it in the fermenter. That's like basically like a garbage bin kind of thing, tank. And ferments, and then he'll just use that to distill one time, and then done. No packaging, no production, no aging, and then he just put it in like a Gatorade bottle, plastic bottle, and then he will exchange with food or something. Like not even money. This is nicely packaged because the importer wanted to go in, and they travel within Haiti, and then they made a contract. So they bought his juice and then put it in a bottle, and it represents all the details and whatnot. Flavor wise, it's quite amazing. It's like very earthy and funky. So it's really like, mezcal has been very popular in United States the past, like 10 years or so. It's because people used to drink tequila, but this is like the original method before tequila was popular. They've been doing this like down to earth, like everything done by hand type of things that mezcal, what's going on, the people appreciate it. That's rum version of this is clarin. All right, my sentence was not really good, but I think you got the point, right? Like, well, yeah, clarin is like a rum version of mezcal. That. So this brand, they have like 4 or 5 different ones. They all taste totally different from each other. All pretty amazing. I like this one because it has like a smoky earthiness to it. I like this one in particular. And that's all. That's about it. Oh, I didn't explain this one. This Chairman's Reserve spiced rum. That's from St. Lucia, but they get the sugar cane from Demerara, ship it over, and then the spice. It's good. Very cocktail friendly rum. So yeah, that's about it. On my next video, I'll talk about United States, and then more like rum culture and cocktails in the United States. So I'll try to do it pretty fast. So remember, if rum cannot fix your problem, you're not using enough rum.